Good afternoon, everyone. So, we're going to go ahead and pick back up today. I'm going to go ahead and do that diamond mining that I said I'd do a few episodes ago. You might notice some changes. I did get a new horse. I also built a new pumpkin farm over here. It's fully automatic. Production isn't quite what I'd like it to be, but it works rather well. It's pretty easy to build. It does take a lot of sticky pistons, but other than that, it's really nice. So, I'll just walk you through it. This is a design by Mumbo Jumbo. I'll probably link his video or his channel in the description below. So, basically how it works is every about minute and a half, the sticky pistons holding the dirt that has the grass on it will pull back, and then these pistons will push down, which will break any pumpkin blocks that have grown, and put them into a water stream. You might have just heard them go off, and then they will come down here. I currently have 26. So, and that's been running for a little while. I'm building a second one over here, but it's been slow going because I'm trying to build it from memory and not easy. Anyway, today what I thought we would do is go ahead and do some diamond mining. I've got my efficiency 2 unbreaking 2 pickaxe, so even though it's only got half of its health left, I figure it'll probably last us for a whole video. And if not, I'll just go ahead and cut while I grab another one. So we're going to go ahead down to my mega mine and we'll, I think, start a brand new branch tunnel. The reason I wanted to do a diamond mining video is because, one, I need diamonds, of course, to go down to the end and fight the Ender Dragon. My diamond armor has almost completely deteriorated, so it's time to get another set. I did get a few armor smiths into my, or weaponsmiths into my village, but no armor smiths yet, so as yet I can't get a set of diamond armor from them. Let's see. Just trying to find a place to dig a new shaft. I think what I'll do is I'll head down this way and let's go down to the end. Okay, so this is looking good right here. What I will do is I'll just head from here. I'm going to dig out a little spot for myself. I'm one plank away from being able to build a crafting table. Oh well. If I need to, I can run all the way back and use one there. Not that I expect to need to use a crafting table for anything, though. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just dig a really, really, really long line, and then we'll branch it out. So I think I'll do probably about 200 blocks. So that'll be 112. So we need to get down to 112 before I can do any serious branching out. Anyway, the reason I wanted to do diamond mining, apart from the obvious, is because it gives me a chance to talk to everyone and kind of go over some stuff that doesn't really have to do anything with Minecraft or roleplay or anything like that, which is something that I would not normally do for a video. I don't remember if I've put up my introduction video yet, but if not, part of the reason for this channel is kind of just talk about meditation. I've been a big, I guess you could say, devotee of Alan Watts for a long time, but I've been recently getting back into it, and Zen Buddhism in general, but mostly Alan Watts because I follow Zen more as a philosophy than as a religion, the way other people do. I'm not really hardcore into into Buddhism. I don't really follow a lot of the major tenets. But that being said, I do tend to look upon it favorably as a general idea of how the world works and how, basically how to build your life to understand it and experience it to its fullest. So along those lines, I kind of wanted to talk about meditation and Zen and how it relates to the modern world, I guess you could say. Where are we now? We're on 196. We need to keep going. I feel like a lot of the things that we do today, especially in the West, are focused more on, I don't know if you'd want to say keeping up appearances or keeping up this idea of ourselves that, on top of being unnecessary, can often be outright harmful to the best way to live our lives. For example, a lot of people seem to be more concerned about their jobs than, the money that they take home or the family that they go home to or anything like that. That their job kind of becomes their life. And, some your wife and your kids and your hobbies and your friends are just something to help you relax before you go back to your job, and I think that's a really toxic way to look at your life. Let's see where we are now. 1:30, almost there. $1.15, that'll do. Okay. And part of the reason I think it's toxic is because, not just because it's kind of gives a bad sense of priorities, but also because it's a fundamental misunderstanding of what it means to basically to be a person. To quote a rather famous movie, you are not your job. But a lot of people seem to think that they are. Or rather, that their job defines them in a way greater than anything else in their lives. And I think that that's trying to find the right word. I think that's a symptom of a greater fear that if we're not successful in our jobs or in our pursuits, then we don't have a purpose, really. If I say I want to be a mechanic or a painter or a writer, and then I don't do those things, then I think a lot of people would get the impression that I have somehow failed in life because I had set some kind of task for myself and then failed to accomplish it, and that's really not a healthy attitude to bring to what is essentially a biological process. we've kind of seen that even in um, modern science, the the so-called role of an organism is to advance the species, and rather than to just exist. And without, and a lot of that thinking comes down to the fact that because an individual organism is, of course, a temporary construct in this universe, it somehow, needs to do something in order to keep its relevance throughout the centuries, and that's really not an important role to play. Nobody's going to care what you did 100 years from now. Maybe if you end up being someone particularly famous or make a particularly important discovery or impact on the world, you might last a century, or 2 or 3 or 10, but sooner or later you're going to be forgotten, and your genes are going to flow into this endless sea of humanity that is never going to stop. Unless we go extinct, the actions of one individual are not that important, and that might sound like a really cynical viewpoint, but really I don't find it to be cynical at all. It's just a fact, and you can either and it's up to you whether or not you want to get depressed about it, or understand that you're free to do anything. Because, well, it's true that eventually everything's going to fade to dust. That doesn't mean you're dust right now. And what you decide to do with your time and with your life is completely in your own realm of experience. And it's completely up to you. And you shouldn't let anybody else decide that for you, because that's going to more or less mean that your entire existence is dictated by them rather than by yourself. And, there are certain things that other people need to dictate, As a male, I can't dictate who gives birth to my kids, because while I might be able to choose, who I have a chance to give birth to my kids, I can't decide how my kids turn out. I can't decide whether or not I get somebody pregnant beyond whether or not I decide to have sex with them. If that makes any sense. I'm kind of rambling here, and I'm sorry if this doesn't make a lot of sense. This is my first time at this, so I hope you'll all forgive me. But the basic idea is, when it comes to me having kids, it's not up to me in large part. I'm not the one that gets to decide whether or not those kids get to come into this world. I certainly have a role to play, and I definitely can't have kids of my own without providing the necessary biological materials, but at the same time, it's, I'm not the one carrying the child. I'm not the one who gets to take care of the pregnancy. I'm not the one who does any of that. That's my wife's job. And so in that way, she gets to dictate how our kids get born, and how they get to come into this world is completely her choice and not mine, even though they're my kids. And so there's things like that you just have to accept that you don't have as much control over as you might like. But those are really minor to the whole realm of human experience, It's not That's definitely more the exception than the rule. And to understand that helps you to understand that while some things may not be in your control, the vast majority of it is. And while you may not feel particularly in control, in any particular instance, you nevertheless are the one to make the final decision in any particular action you might take. It's completely up to you whether or not you actually want to have kids or not, to keep using that as an example. It's completely up to you whether or not you want to have kids, and if you decide that you never want to have kids ever in your life, then you can make that, you can help make that a sure thing by, going and getting yourself sterilized or whatever. It's not a choice that I would make, but other people might, and it's completely within your realm of control if you decide to do that. So, getting back on topic, not that I was completely off of it before, but your experience as a human being isn't decided by any one factor, and I see a lot, not as much anymore, but definitely when I was younger, and I guess you could say more rebellious, I saw a lot of people who tried to define themselves by a single facet of their life, whether it be, their chosen profession, or their sexual orientation, or a cause that they might want to be a part of, or just a number of other things that is really just a tiny sliver of the entire human experience, and they decided that was their entire life, and I could see them getting a worse experience. Even if they were happy with what they had, they were definitely experiencing less of life than what they would otherwise. And, it's up to you whether you want to be, whether the most important thing, rather, is to be happy or to have a good experience. And that's kind of what I'm tying all of this into, is it's okay to be unhappy. A basic tenet of, or not tenet, but one of the conclusions that the dialogue in Zen makes is that being unhappy is not the same as any kind of failure. It's not your job to be happy all the time, and to put that on yourself creates the idea that you're somehow failing if you're not happy. And that's not the case. You're a human being. It's okay to be unhappy. It's okay to be depressed, or to be angry, or to be sad, or any other of the entire range of human emotions. There's no emotion that you're expected to feel at any given time, and if anybody tells you that there is, then they're not understanding A, what you're going through, or B, what it means to be a person. And in either case, that can sometimes develop into a toxic relationship. And if that does happen, you've got to decide for yourself whether or not you need to continue that relationship or cut it off. To be rather blunt about it, sometimes it's better to let those people go. And understanding how you're feeling and how it's okay to feel any particular way is a really important part of understanding how to deal with your emotions. I think a lot of people get it into their heads that they're expected to be happy or at least content, And so when they're not, they think they have to change that, like, immediately. And that's not the case. It's okay to be upset, really. Even if you don't have a good reason, it's okay. Just let yourself feel, and eventually you'll feel something else. You don't need to... You don't need to be expected, or think that you're expected, to exist in any particular state at any particular time. Which is part of the problem with a lot of our social interactions today. Even even close friends, unless they've experienced, really severe emotional disconnects themselves, can't really help a person that they consider to be a close friend who might be, depressed or have, anger issues or, bipolar disorder. There's all kinds of things that really can't be well understood unless you've experienced it for yourself. And that doesn't mean they can't help you at all, but it does mean that their expectations of how you might possibly be feeling probably won't match up with the way you actually feel. And that's okay. As long as you understand that just because you expect someone to feel a certain way doesn't mean that they have to. You might expect somebody to be happy, but if they're still unhappy, even months or years after you might consider it to be, appropriate, that's probably a good idea that there's some kind of mental illness going on, but that doesn't mean that they're wrong. It means that they're perceiving and processing the world in a way that you weren't expecting, and that's all. And that doesn't give you a right or a reason to expect them to change or think that they're wrong for feeling a certain way. But likewise, if you're going through those kind of issues and someone's doing the same for you, you need to tell them that what they're expecting of you and how you're actually handling or processing something is different from what they're expecting. And, hopefully they take it in stride. Hopefully they say, okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. Because that's, if someone reacts that way, then they're probably a true friend, and they probably really do care about you and understand that the way that you might live and the way that they might live are different. And that's a good thing. But other people might not be so understanding, and if that's the case, then it might be a good idea to reevaluate your relationship with that person, because it might actually end up doing you more harm than good. I've still got a lot of friends that are in college or just barely finishing college, and a lot of them are considering, changing majors, changing schools entirely, perhaps even thinking of dropping out of college altogether. And a lot of people who have influence in their lives, parents, teachers, and so on, are taking a really negative reaction to that for some of them, because they don't understand how the person is thinking or what they're going through, and they have an expectation that, you go to college, you pick a major, you might change it once or twice at the very beginning, and, then eventually you figure out what you wanted to and you do it. But that's really not the case for a lot of people. A lot of people don't function like that. Some people aren't that decisive. Some people perhaps emotionally charged might be the best way to put it, and their life goals may change a lot more frequently than other people. There are a lot of things that can cause a person to want to change what they want to do with their life. And sometimes change can happen quickly, sometimes it doesn't. And it's not for anybody else to decide whether it's too fast or too slow. So, I just wanted to leave you guys with that tonight. I think I'm just going to go ahead and mine a few more diamonds on my own. And I think this next episode after this, we're going to go ahead and head over to the end, and I'll finally show you that Ender Dragon. So, I'd appreciate your comments on this. Any constructive criticism is definitely welcome. I hope you guys have a great evening.